with our internet, just let me know if, please someone interrupt me who's on the call that's not here in person if it starts getting glitchy. Working on it. We had Verizon and it progressively got worse and worse. I even doubled the internet speed and it still was just as bad. It would just be me in here with one browser open, one tab open, and it would take 20 minutes to load. And we switched to AT&T because it had 5G and it rarely connects to the 5G. So probably switch again, which is super fun to deal with. But yeah, we'll get it going. So let me know if it does cut in and out at all. Yeah, with listings right now, so tomorrow we're going to do, our class will be on how to do a listing appointment and how I do it. I'd love for anyone who has done a lot of listings, maybe Vivi can come and give her insights as well on what we go over. I had made my own listing presentation, which I still got to refine and work on. And there's a place in Roseville that I'm going to go and pay for a few generic booklets. And so if you're new and you don't want to pay for your own like really nice looking listing presentation, and you get one scheduled last minute, like David had one scheduled like a week out, and he just didn't really have time to get like the really nice one made. This way you can just take your business card, you'll have a little slot that you can put it in, and at least you can come a little bit prepared, but it'll look super professional. The nice thing about the presentations is that it's going to go over a lot of things that I think a lot of your competition might go over. So there have been some agents that have lost out on deals because someone said that they have a database of buyers looking in the area, and that's how they won over the listing. Whether that's true or not, doesn't matter. I highly doubt it. But I incorporate that in my listing presentation and some good stuff. So we'll go over that tomorrow. The other thing I wanted to go over tomorrow too during the listing presentation is essentially what happens when sellers are not understanding that their house is not worth what it is and they think that the condition's better than it is. How do you handle that? When do you say no? There have been quite a few of us who have had those tough deals and tough listings. I mean, I have one right now that this is the second house I'm listing, third house of hers, second house on the market that just is not selling because the renovations, the person she chose to come and do these renovations did just do such a terrible job. And she always wants it for like way up here. I can get her down. I can convince her to go down a little bit, but it gets to a point where you need to say no. And you need to say, listen, and be as brutally honest. Why? Because it can come back and hit you. Now, if we were in a market where you're getting tons of offers, at some point, even if you don't get tons of offers, someone is going to come in and make a decently close offer. In today's market, not all houses are getting tons of offers. So this is where you have to start to draw the line and say no, because even though there might be a potential person somewhere looking for that, the problem I run into is these people will get frustrated because they refuse to believe that it's their price and the property's condition. And so when an opportunity presents itself for them to blame you, they will definitely blame you and jump on you. And it's just a waste of time. It's a waste of money. Nick and I are both studying for the Series 65, so we can put together some real estate funds and do some advising and stuff like that. But one of the things that I was laughing, it's like a common term that people should understand is there's always, a loss. So if I say, hey, company A can produce 25 computers in an hour or 100 iPhones in an hour, is there ever a loss in production? Yes, because if I choose to make 100 iPhones, I lose the opportunity to create 25 computers, and it's the same thing. If I put in what can I lose other than a couple $100 for pictures and putting the sign out? You also lose all that time to prospect for more business. You lose a lot of sanity. I think most people in our brokerage, we take things on, and it's very common for new agents to do this. We take things on very personally. So when a house isn't selling and your seller's expressing their frustration and they're just like, how come we can't get anyone to show it? Why aren't we getting any offers? A lot of us, and it's natural to feel this way, feel the stress of that and feel very responsible. And so it's important to know that that's going to happen, and then just don't even take the opportunity. If they're not willing to listen, like Chase, who might be sleeping, or he's got a couple deals in contract, but one of the things he and I always talk about is, listen, your client has made the decision they want to make. You've advised them as best as you can, move on, because you're just wasting a lot of time that you could be spending doing other things and growing and getting more business. So get out of the tunnel vision. Like when I was an officer in the Army, it was known that officers get shot in the head a lot because we get tunnel vision and trying to direct everyone, and we just stand up and get shot. And so I remember getting my head kicked into the dirt by one of our instructors, and he's like, I'd rather kick your head in the dirt now than have you get shot in the head later. He's like, get out of the tunnel vision. Just get out of it. You're getting too focused on one thing. You need to look at the grand picture, right? And so we're finding, especially in this market, we're getting just a lot of listings where people are overpriced. I mean, way overpriced. Vanessa called me about one that's hundreds of thousands, possibly overpriced. I've got ones that are $50,000 overpriced, and the condition's bad, and whatever. And I just don't want you all to get blamed. You can take it if you want. I mean, I'm not anyone's boss. If you want to take a listing that's overpriced that we both don't think is priced that way, that's fine. I mean, I've known agents that their mentality is, I tell them, yeah, they can get whatever price they want. If I know I'm competing, I'll say that it can sell for way more than it can. And I'll just have that tough conversation later. And that's literally how they've built their business for the last 15 years. So it's doable. I just personally don't recommend it because I think it takes a personality of not really caring. And so it is frustrating, especially when you spend a lot of money and you spend a lot of time on a listing and have someone say, oh, because you personally didn't do the open house, that's why we don't have any buyers. So I'm mad at you, and I don't think you're doing a good job representing me. It's like, okay, have you seen your house? Have you seen, whatever? Like, I will. So part of our listing class that we'll do tomorrow, I truly believe the best way to handle an objection is handling it before it becomes an objection. So things like open houses, I like to talk about it, and I just say, listen, we can do an open house just as something to do, but even our National Association of Realtors has finally come out with a study that said only 3% of transactions close from a buyer that came during an open house. To me, for you as the seller, the main benefit of an open house is it's just an open time for buyers agents to come and show the house to their clients, so they don't have to schedule an appointment. Because from my experience, if they have to schedule an appointment, a lot of them are less likely to do so because they've got so many other properties they have to see. And so I just want to make it as easy on them as they can so that they actually show the property, and present it to their client. Like there have been times I'm down the street with a new client looking at a house, and they say, oh, are there any other houses you want to see? I'm like, well, you didn't tell me there were other ones, and now I've got to schedule appointments. And I say, oh, that one's doing an open house. Let's just drive down there and look at it. So that is the one benefit. I don't really believe buyers are going to come in and be like, oh my gosh, I love it. I don't know who you are, but let's write an offer, right? It's not the end all be all. So it's up to you as the seller if you want to do that. If you all, really want to do an open house, obviously you can stress that as well. We are not selling sunset, right? If you have a multi-million-dollar mansion, then sure, do an open house as like a party with a bar or something like that. I'll go bartend for you. But regular homes in our area, not necessary. You can definitely do it if you want. I just would not highly recommend that, or highly don't recommend doing that, because there can be some issues. But anyway, so we'll do the listing presentation class tomorrow. I do think once interest rates start to drop, conversations are going to totally change during the listing appointments, because there's going to be a mad rush of people, and then it's going to slow down again. So when rates really drop, just be prepared. But I do have a listing presentation made. I can tailor it to however anyone wants. It looks a little more professional than the previous one we had, and I put a lot more thought into it. So I'm going to go over that tomorrow. For anyone who wants to sit in on the class, we'll have it here. Hopefully we'll have a TV hung up on the wall with the camera looking down, so anyone who wants to just watch online can do that. But we'll definitely cover also, how do you explain the comparables? And a good one that I had learned was, if you know they're interviewing multiple agents and you see an agent dominating in that area and has the most listings, how do you basically show that they might not represent your client as well without just saying that? Because that just looks bad on you by putting someone else down. And so there's tricks to do that, and I'll show you tomorrow. So that's tomorrow. Okay. The other main ones. So we are adding the supplemental tax addendum or advisory. I can't remember what the name of the form is. To our brokerage required documents. It's only going to help you to not have a tough conversation a month or two after you close. So we're getting a lot of calls from people who bought, and 3 months later, they're getting this supplemental tax bill from the local county taxes. And essentially what it is let's say seller A bought their house for $200,000. Now my buyer B is purchasing it for $400,000. Well, seller A or seller, when they bought it at an assessed value of $200,000. So let's just say 1.25% of $200,000. They pay their property taxes twice a year, so every 6 months. So that gets paid in full. So they pay their property taxes. When my buyer buys, they prorate the tax, and that's part of my buyer's closing costs. They pay prorated taxes to reimburse the seller for the property taxes that were already paid during the months that my buyer is now occupying the property. So that makes sense. But that's based on an assessed value of $200,000 and 1.25 of $200,000. So let's say there's 3 more months left in that 6-month period that they already paid for. They bought it for $200,000, or the assessed value is $200,000, 1.25. Now the new assessed value is $400,000 that my buyer is paying for the house. And so there's a supplemental tax bill. Basically, not enough taxes were paid ahead of time for those remaining 3 months. And so that is the bill people get. My personal bill was like $30 because of the way I bought it in December. The next bill was due in January. I've had others that bought the month after the seller paid all the taxes, and their bill was $500. And so you just have to be prepared to advise them. This is something that escrow and title companies do, and notaries go over with your client during the final signing. And they definitely 100,000% bring it up every single time. For some reason, people totally forget, and they're definitely going to blame you, and they're definitely going to blame the loan officer as to why they all of a sudden have this bill. So we're just adding it in. So it's another way. It's just something I would remind you to just have that conversation with them. It's just an addendum that says that they could be getting a supplemental tax bill based on whatever. If they bought the house for less than the assessed value, then they get money back. But that is an advisory that we are adding. So for those of you who use Jennifer Lee as your transaction coordinator, she's also the one that audits a lot of our files somewhat. She and I both do that, mostly me, but she's going to make sure that people are adding that. But if you use another transaction coordinator somewhere else, just keep in mind that you're going to have to let them know that it is a required item. It's not for a lot of brokerages, which is surprising, but there are a good amount adding it. So yeah, it's just that one. And then AVIDs, so your agent visual inspection disclosure. This is one that I'm going to be talking about in a couple meetings, even briefly. Let's be very clear. So this is the way I was taught, was hands behind your back. It's what I can visibly see. And whatever I'm pointing out has to be something that can't be an opinion of what it is. So I see a thumbtack hole in the wall right here. I cannot say thumbtack size. I can't say small, because that's up to someone's opinion on what is small and what is big, right? So I say hole in wall. For most sellers, every once in a while I get a seller who says, oh, isn't that going to dissuade the buyer? No, honestly, I've never had it. I've only had one time where the super analytical engineer said, hey, you said there was a hole in the wall in the kitchen. And you want me to sign this document? What hole in the wall? And I said, dude, it was a thumb. It was like they hung a picture, but I have to say hole in the wall. And I just always say I can't give details of what it is. You always want to comment about something in every room, just something. You never want to leave a room with nothing to note, because what I have been advised and heard from previous court cases, if you have more than one room where you said nothing to note and something happens, they will be quick to say that you didn't do your due diligence and you were just rushing through and saying nothing to note. So if I'm looking in a tiny half bath and I really don't see anything, to be honest, I put mark on floor, mark on wall. Because if I really got on my hands and knees and I looked, I'm sure I could see something. Yeah, come on. So just be aware that if I see agent visual inspections where it says nothing to note, I'm going to have you go back, or we're going to send someone else out to do it for you. And it's not like a threat to anyone. It's just we're trying to protect everyone. Obviously, people teach different things at different times. So if you came from a different brokerage, well, that's on them. I've seen people put mark on wall for every single room and every single thing, and that will somewhat fly. Can you close the door? But my only thing with putting mark on wall within everything is obviously it just looks like you're half-assing it. And just think of, in the eyes of the court, do you want them to think that way? So same thing, stain on the carpet. Clearly there's a stain there. You put discoloration on carpet, because you don't know if that's a water stain. You don't know if someone spilled oil, and next thing you know, a spark hits it and it goes up in flames and burns the whole house down, and you put water stain on the ground. Same thing with the ceiling. You don't know if that's a water stain. You don't know if some kid just threw their drink on the wall or something like that. Or once again, maybe there was people have camping gear. They store their camping gear in some ceiling attic space, and a lantern fell over, and that is lighter fluid. So just remember, it's very generic things. At the bottom, it says other observed or known facts. I just always put, if it was me, I would always put review seller disclosures and inspection reports, because that's the other observed or known facts that you may know. The reason why this visual inspection came about is essentially someone buys a house, they do an inspection, whatever is good, they move in, they call the agent later and they say, oh, you would have never believed this, but in the living room, the ceiling caved in because apparently there was a leak in the ceiling. And the agent says, oh, you mean where that dark spot was in the ceiling? That like big wet looking dark spot? And they said, yeah. You're saying you knew it? You knew about it? Because I missed it as the buyer, and so did the home inspector. Right. And now you're on the hook because you reasonably saw something. So it also takes out, right, because you're not supposed to open cabinets. You're not supposed to climb on a ladder and look on top of anything. If there's a lot of personal stuff, not your problem. So it removes a lot of that question of, could they reasonably have known that there was mold in the cabinets? No, because we are told not to open the cabinets. Does that make sense to everyone? I mean, if I hear someone say, hey, there's mold in the cabinets, then I'm going to put it. Like sometimes I've heard of sellers saying, well, I don't want to disclose that there was a leak in the wall. I don't want to disclose it. Well, you told me there's a leak in the wall. So legally, I need to put in an addendum that the seller mentioned that there was a leak in the wall. I get that you don't want to disclose it, but now I have to, because it will come back on me. Not something we see very often, but just throwing that out there. Same thing with seller disclosures. This was another big one. That is the one thing you cannot help your client fill out. If they really are wondering whether they should disclose something, like for instance, a recent client of mine had a death, or their child passed away, and they weren't sure. They didn't know that I knew, or I wasn't sure if they knew that I knew, but they told me, hey, there was an incident in the house. Do I have to, in one of the bedrooms, do I have to put that on the disclosure? I'm like, well, what do you mean an incident? And they just said, well, something happened. And I knew what they were referring to. And I said, was there a death in the bedroom? And they said, no. According to the hospital record and the death certificate, there's a death at the hospital. I said, then no. Unless if someone was shot, stabbed, or other very violent crimes in there, otherwise it's just speculation of what and when. And if you're right. So the only other times, I've seen it is when someone says, hey, should I disclose it? Agent says, no, that was a couple of years ago. Don't worry about it. Boom, you are on the hook. And I have seen many people get sued. Agents get sued for that. So you do not advise your client to fill it out. This is why we refer them to Seller Shield. And we just say, hey, listen, my best recommendation is go room by room with your spouse or just you and your family or whoever. If it's just you, just go room by room and make sure you put anything and everything you possibly think of. If you hear traffic, I'd put it. Like, it's not something that's going to sway a buyer, and that's the wrong way to look at it. This is a document that you look at as, I'm trying to protect myself. I do not care if this is going to turn off a buyer, because more often than not, it's not going to dissuade a buyer. It's more if you put nothing. I've had buyers say, how have they lived there for 20 years and had no issues or repairs, anything at all? And so, right, most sellers understand that, and they're quick to agree with you and put what they should put. Does anyone have any questions about any of that or anything they've seen? This is a California thing, not necessarily another state. So if anyone hears anything from other states are very different on almost everything in regards to everything. Yeah. Georgia, you don't even have to disclose anything. So, Idaho as well. You have black mold growing in all your walls, don't have to disclose it apparently, which is wild to me. No questions? Sweet. Okay, so then on July 11th at 10 a.m. for our Thursday class, we're having a rep from American Home Shield coming in. They've been adjusting their pricing. So if you're trying to write a competitive offer and you want the buyer to pay for the natural hazards disclosure, it's usually around $100. If you choose American Home Shield, they're offering it for $50. Same thing, if you get a seller and the buyers are all asking for that, just make sure to counter them and say, because in our area, most of the time the sellers pay for it. So in the MLS, I would put natural hazards disclosure to be with American Home Shield. Or if someone calls you, you can ask that or just counter them. So it depends how you want to treat it. But $50, you save your clients $50. I have had people throw a fit that they didn't realize it was going to be $100. So $50, but they're going to give you pricing. My best advice is when you're representing buyers and the market gets really competitive and you put that the seller pays for the buyer's home warranty or the buyer really wants that, put an accurate number, because it could make the difference of getting your deal accepted or not. So if I put $570, because that is the max cost for the basic home warranty with American Home Shield, and someone else put $620 because they weren't sure, and that all it says is that the price is not to exceed $620. There's no thing at $620. Actually, the next one's $650. So that would mean that it would be $570. But from the eyes, if people are comparing pricing, right, I'm saving my client $50 again by choosing the offer that the home warranty is only $570. Does that make sense to everyone? So it's just another thing for us to learn, plus having a rep. Even she said the same thing. If you call us and if your client is having an issue and American Home Shield is saying that they won't fix something and they believe they should, call me. A lot of times we'll get it fixed, because we'd rather not lose a client and just fix a quick issue, even though it's not in the contract. So she'll be here. We've got her flyers and her pricing in here as well on the little flyer box desk that's quickly turning into the flyer box desk. And then so that day, July 11th, we're also going to do a happy hour at the office for clients, realtors that are looking to maybe make a change or just want to check us out. And same thing with mortgage lenders. So that'll be 4 to 7 p.m. in the office. We'll either make it like a potluck style or we'll have the home warranty rep bring us pizzas. But that's another great way for any of you who are trying to touch base with past clients or just people in your sphere, or you're doing what David and I and some other people are doing, and you're just adding people in certain occupations on your LinkedIn. It's a great thing to invite them to and build a relationship with them. Remember, the goal is not necessarily getting people here. As exciting as it is that people say, yeah, I really want to come, The main goal is to remind them that you're a real estate agent and to build a connection. David here has a client with a listing coming up that he's going to explain in a second, and helping them buy a new construction house. How did you reconnect? This is someone you went to high school with?
I went to a new construction, like a new building area in Roseville, and just asked them if I could tour one of their properties and take a little video. And they said, yeah, sure, no problem. I did. I edited it with the CapCut and uploaded it on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then somebody that, like, I haven't seen him, face to face in 15, almost 20 years from high school. But we keep in contact on social media, and he reaches out and said, hey, you mentioned something in that video that sparked my attention. We're thinking about selling our existing house and getting into a new build like that. And we're launching the listing this Thursday.
Yeah. There's a couple things too. So keep in mind, we're now 2 years of high interest rates. This guy bought at 7%. So buying at 7% is not the end of the world. He wants to be in a better neighborhood. The builder is offering a 5 point something kind of interest rate. The other thing, so you were already friends with him on Instagram, right? You didn't connect with him recently since getting your license.
I mean, I just reset up my Instagram in December and my license posted in March. So it's like I haven't been on social media in 2 or 3 years. So it's like when I reset it up, it's like, oh, there's Ness. Haven't talked to him in several years, but we reconnected. But
you didn't even know he lives in this area.
I couldn't tell you if you asked me. I would assume he lived in Sacramento, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. I mean, so I had someone I went to elementary school with that I didn't realize lives half a mile away from my house and is already in the process of selling and buying in Auburn. And I invited her to our office, and she goes, she told me, or I think maybe she hasn't sold her house yet. Anyway, it's important to remind people, right? You post something, and unfortunately, even the way Instagram's algorithm works, they may not even see it. People may glance over it. It's still good to post something though. But it's very important to connect with people no matter what, and just be trying to do, you don't want to say, hey, if you ever look to buy or sell, reconnect with me. That's why we do these events. It's an opportunity for you to give someone something of value, whether they come or not, and remind them that you're in the industry. So it was great that he posted that video. It wasn't the most perfect video, and what I mean by that is sometimes people get a little too bogged down with creating the most perfect video. They're worried about their voice, worried about that. He said what he needed to say right from the beginning and got that guy's attention. So yeah, that's great. And that's why we do those events. We're still working on getting a trust attorney to come and do a class more in August. We've had some crazy things with the internet here, so that's been a little bit of my focus, but I'll start calling some trust attorneys to do that, because that'll be another big resource and way to connect with people. The only last thing I had on my list was just make sure everyone's being really intentional about your marketing strategy. It's the same thing I'm hearing in all kinds of mastermind groups, our mortgage industry. Pick something and be specific with how you're going to dominate with it. If you're planning on working a farm, like, I always want to say Travis, because Rebecca, your name on here is Travis and Rebecca, because Rebecca, she's very intentional with her kickball tournaments, with these events she's doing. That is how you work a farm. And just remember, it's going to take some time, right? This is not an industry. I mean, this is starting a business. If you want to go get a job and get a paycheck in 2 weeks, you can do that. But starting a business is going to be a little bit of a delay. David put some sense of urgency behind it and comes in here every day and has been messaging people and doing it whatever he can. So he got this deal, which is great. My goal is so that everyone can get full-time in this industry. Just make sure that you're intentional with your marketing, because otherwise it's too easy to beat yourself up when you post one post and you don't get any results. When you post 5 posts, you don't get any results. What is your goal with that? What are you trying to do? Chase has become very intentional with his TikTok. I mean, he might be making more money off TikTok views than real estate. No, just kidding. But I mean, he's getting like 500,000 views now on his videos because he just stuck with it and has been so intentional with it. And it's just a matter of time before he just starts getting deal after deal after deal. So I would just say be very intentional with what you're going to do. Who are you targeting? I mean, I even have to be this way when I connect with people on LinkedIn who are in our industry. I make sure to invite them to like our LinkedIn page. I make sure to invite them to our happy hour events, because my goal is to bring in good quality talent and people, because it's going to help us grow more. But I know that it's a matter of catching someone at the right time. When someone's thinking, hey, I think I really need to make a change, I want to be the person they think about. And so I just want to remind them that we still exist and are expanding. So that's just my last message is, please make sure you all are trying to be as intentional as you can with what you're doing. This is definitely going to be an interesting couple months, because next couple months is when everyone is going on a lot of vacations. So you're going to get a lot of random, like, especially if you have listings, you're going to get a lot of Friday, Monday and Tuesday showings, to be honest, because people are going camping on the weekends, and then they're going to use their lunch break or clock in at work and still go to look at the house. So it's a very interesting time. Not that it slows down necessarily. It's always, you're battling people's vacations. So yeah. David has a listing coming up. Would you like to share some details about it and pricing for anyone who has potential buyers looking?
Okay. Yeah, it's an Antelope. It's 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It was built in 2019. It's very well, it's been kept up very nicely. I've been inside a couple times. It's clean. Small patio. It's going to be listed at 470,000.
You said Antelope, right?
Antelope, yeah.
Antelope. More towards the Roseville area, though, right? Oh, that's okay.
In a way, it's Alberta and a street called Pine,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah. I think that it's a good price, especially with some updates. Anyone else have any other listings coming up? Thought Chanel had mentioned she might.
Well, Nate and I are meeting with we're doing a listing presentation. Well, we are going to the house of a lady that we've talked to a few times, who's thinking about buying, kind of like your client, David. So, but they do have to sell their house. It's in Folsom. So we're meeting with her on Sunday afternoon. And then I likely have a listing coming up at the end of July, early August in Rockland. Nate and I.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So that's what we have right now.
I have a question, and maybe all you agents already know this, but my client brought this, he asked me, he said, hey, my couch and sectional and TV, if a client or if a buyer makes a good offer that's like at the listing price or preferably above, that we would throw in the TV and the couch and stuff. Is that something that I should advertise?
No.
Should I tell the other
I would wait for
agent?
someone to ask and then tell the agents who are interested in putting in an offer. I have found San Jose and Los Angeles buyers tend to ask for the furniture. It's an odd thing to me, but they do. Some San Francisco people, but not a lot. It's just weird that San Jose and LA, it's like, that's just what they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what if like the buyer's agent, says, oh yeah, they really like the great room area, like the living room setup.
Yeah, just say with the right offer, my client said they'd be willing to throw in the couch and TV if your client wants it. Anyone who says, yeah, we're thinking about writing an offer, just say, hey, just so you know, with the right offer, my client's willing to throw in this stuff, just include it in the offer as well.
Perfect.
Yeah. You just don't want to advertise it because people can get weird about that. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Or does anyone else have any other feedback on the call with that? I would rather negotiate.
I agree with you, Cameron. I think when you start offering things, then people will always then try to take more. I think that, I don't know.
Furniture sucks to have to deal with, and it is extremely like, I would rather negotiate to get furniture with the offer. When you try to do it later, you feel like I'm negotiating, like I'm a furniture salesman negotiating a deal where I make nothing extra on it. So this is really odd to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it comes at no warranty. So if it's beat up, it comes at that condition. Yeah, because I've had one where they're like, "Oh, I spent this much for their their table, but I think they scratched it when they were moving other stuff out." I'm like, "Then you need to call them. I don't. My job was not to help you buy a table."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like potentially, David, if you say that, then people may say, "Oh, well, I'll offer you a lower price, and I don't need the couch." So then they
Yeah,
see it
that
as
is
like a
true.
negotiation tool. So just it might be like an extra little bonus if they find out, during the transaction that they're willing to throw that into.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I would just say, hey, if you do end up offering over, and then offer that. Yeah. Yeah, because we do get people that do that a lot. Yeah. Try to get a deal. Yeah, and with that, which did remind me, the last thing is whenever you do get a seller, just make sure that if they happen to run into the buyer or buyer's agent, to just not say anything as much as possible. Like I've had it, and same thing with I had a buyer who this agent made it so they had to see the house within 3 hours in like Woodland, let's say, outskirts of Woodland. And I said, I can't, I've got my daughter. And she said, well, I live right down the street. I'm willing to show them the house if you're okay with that. I'm not going to steal your client or anything. I'm just telling you, I'll just open the door and let them in. Well, she asked them, what's your guys' situation? And they said, well, this house would be really nice because his ex lives right down the street and we have to deal with childcare, switching the children on and off. That agent took that as this is the only house on the whole market for them. And it made us trying to negotiate a deal extremely difficult. And I told her you ruined it and we had to move on to a different house. So not my clients, the agent, because she just got too focused on the fact that they said it was right down the street from his ex and that was like the most important thing to them. So just be careful whenever your client, especially sellers, this happens a lot. They'll run to the buyer's agent and the buyer's agent will say, hey, so where are you all moving to? They just say, we're moving to Roseville. Yeah, that's all we want to say about that. Because if you say we're moving to Roseville, we're in contract for a new constructed house, they're gonna take that as, oh, they need this deal to go through in order to buy their new construction house. And so we're going to use that as leverage when we're negotiating repairs and credits and stuff like that. So just remind your clients not to say too much. Same thing for you all. Just don't say too much when you talk to people. Any little thing you can use as leverage, you should use, but you also don't want people to use against you, if that makes sense. So
also with all the technology, Ring cameras in the houses, I usually tell people not to say too much while we're touring.
Yeah. Yeah, I do tell people when we first walk up, if I see a Ring camera or if I know them well, I just, if we're touring regular houses, I say, hey, just be careful of what we say because sometimes I've had a hunter client who had a game camera in his living room and heard everything these people were saying. He's like, they said that they would offer this, but they would accept this, but they want to offer this. And so we encountered them. I mean, eventually they're going to come out with a disclosure that you have to put. I'm sure they're going to do it. It's California that you put that, hey, there's cameras in the home. And people have to see before you show it because that becomes an issue. But yeah, thank you, Nate, because it is true. I'll have clients will walk out of the house. They're like, listen, I think I want to offer 20,000 less, but I'd take it for 10,000. I'm like, dude, there's a Ring camera right there. And sellers are listening for sure. Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's the end of that. Nick and I are probably getting really close on getting our Series 65 license where we can start putting together some real estate funds. And we'll let anyone else know how that works if anyone wants to invest in some deals. But yeah, other than that, hopefully I'll see you all tomorrow for our listing presentation class. I think it'll be really good. All right. Bye.
Thanks, Cameron. Good meeting. Thank you.
All right, Cameron, see you tomorrow.